Okay, it's 7 o'clock, so we are going to get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Amy Demchak-Connell. I'm part of the executive board of the PTSA for Mattituck High School. I want to thank you all for joining us here this evening for PTSA's Meet the Candidates Night for our 6th Board of Education candidates. I want to say that we are very, very fortunate in the Mattituck-Cutchogue School District to have 6 community members
running for our 3 open seats
on the Board of Education. And I want to thank each and every one of them for taking on the opportunity to run for a position. It's truly appreciated. As you can see from our agenda this evening, we are going to go through a series of questions that have been submitted by community members. We had many people submit questions, so I want to thank everyone for that. And we are going to be selecting these randomly. And we have decided to try to ask each question to all 6 candidates so that you can hear the answer from all 6. When we get to the Q&A portion of our program this evening, we are going to ask each candidate to spend 1 to 2 minutes on the meeting responses. And I'll go over that in a little more detail in a moment. I know some more people are still joining us for the meeting. Okay, so to continue, we're very fortunate to have our current Board of Education President, Barbara Wheaton, joining us here this evening. And Mrs. Wheaton is going to provide some remarks. And she is going to describe the position descriptions, for our Board of Education members. So Mrs. Wheaton.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to say, as you did, thank you candidates for being willing to serve your community on the Board of Ed. This service is a completely volunteer position. There's no compensation other than knowing that you're giving back to your community. And to me, that's a big deal. So that's the compensation for your board service. Now, the board is made up of 7 members, 7 Board of Ed members, and each member serves a term. Each term is 3 years. And so every year, 3 members are up for re-election. Okay, so it was interesting. A past president who was talking about board service one time said, well, you know, it takes about 5 hours a week to serve on the board. And we kind of chuckled because honestly, it's at least 5 hours to serve on the board. It really does take more time than you think, but you know, this is your community. And so you get very, very involved, and I appreciate the involvement. So I want to say probably a minimum of 5 hours per week, depending on what's going on. The point is, I think that the board member needs to be flexible, be able to be flexible with their time, depending on what's happening in the district. And so the nice thing is, when you get onto the school board, there is a mandatory training. New York State School Boards Association provides it for you. It's about a 2-day training, and they go through everything with you and explain, here's what you need to do. Here's what your job is. Here's what your job isn't. And that's very, very helpful. So that's basically a couple of things to help you wrap your brain around board service. But thank you. Thank you. Good luck to everybody. Back to you, Amy.
Thank you, Mrs. Wheaton. Okay, so next I have the pleasure here of introducing our candidates. So our 6 candidates in alphabetical order are Jeffrey Connolly, Douglas Cooper, Alexandra Cardwell, Karen Letterello, Edward Merlot, and Denise Taramina. At this time, we are going to continue in that order, and I'm going to ask each of our candidates to introduce themselves and give a little background information. This is going to be limited to 2 minutes. At the 30-second remaining mark, so after 1 minute and 30 seconds goes by, we are going to post in the chat 30 seconds remaining so that you can keep track of the time there. And then at 2 minutes, we're going to ask you to close so that we can move on to our next candidate. We want to make sure that we can cover as much as we can in the short time that we have together this evening. So we're going to start off with Jeffrey Connolly. Mr. Connolly?
Yes, good evening, and thank you to the Mattituck-Cutchogue PTSA for hosting this Meet the Candidates event. My name is Jeffrey Connolly. I'm currently a trustee on the Mattituck-Cutchogue Board of Education and running for re-election this year. I grew up on the North Fork, graduated from Mattituck High School, and studied finance and economics at the College of the Holy Cross. I'm a chartered financial analyst. My professional background includes investment banking and asset management. I live with my wife and children in Mattituck. Currently, we have one child in the high school, one in the universal pre-K program, and another child that will be entering school in the next few years. Education is very important to me because I've seen the positive impact it can have on people, myself included. And I believe that our school district has a lot of great qualities, but there's always room for improvement. So if elected, I would like to see the district continue to build on the academic programs and also expand opportunities for extracurriculars. That said, declining enrollment will continue to be a significant challenge for the district. The high school has approximately 110 students per grade, while the elementary grades are closer to 60 or 70 students. Last year, the high school introduced 12 new courses, but we were only able to run 6 due to the numbers. So as enrollment continues to decline, I believe that the district should look for ways to collaborate with our neighboring districts to be able to offer more courses and extracurricular activities. We've had some combined sports teams for a few years and really seen great success with that. So I think branching out into academics might see similar success. Lastly, I believe that the Board of Education and the district should really strive to minimize the burden on the taxpayer. We have relatively low taxes compared to other parts of Long Island, and I'd really like to keep it that way. So thanks again to the PTSA for this opportunity, and I look forward to discussing my thoughts and answering questions.
Thank you very much. Next, Douglas Cooper. Mr. Cooper, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, indeed. And thank you to everyone for having us. It's a good way for the public to get to know us. And as Jeff has said, it's growing up here and the history that we know here that's important. I'm a local farmer and have farmed all my life. Grew up here in Mattituck and went to college, studied engineering and economics, and I've come back to farm. It's great to be able to give back to your community. I'm on a couple other programs in the town, and that's our legacy that we pass on to the future, is what we give back to the community. The quality of education, I believe, in Mattituck is extremely good. I agree with Jeff that we need advanced placement courses, but we also need hands-on courses for carpentry and plumbing that we can teach our kids. At one time, on the farm, used to have a lot of kids working for us. Now that is very rare, and that's unfortunate. But going forward, we need to strive the balance between the taxpayer and the quality and the cost of education, and that's extremely important. That's why I originally got on the board. So it's what we can teach our kids how to carry forward in the future and what they can provide for our town and community, and the history lessons that we can teach them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, Alexandra Cardwell.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alexandra Cardwell, and I'm honored to be running for the board in our community. I live in Laurel with my husband, who is from the North Fork, and our 2 children. I grew up in Poland and graduated with a bachelor's degree in finance and banking. I also completed a leadership program at Columbia Business School. I own and operate a business based in Southampton, and I served as a president of the Southampton Rotary Club from 2019 to 2020. I have also volunteered with several non-profit organizations, and I'm on the PTA at the Cutchogue East. I would like to put my leadership skills and experience to work for our students and community. As a member of the board, I will put our students first when making decisions about their educational opportunities, college and careers preparation, and well-being. I will use our resources wisely and invest where needed to make a positive impact on our kids' education. I will also work to keep our budget in line, cut costs, where it makes sense and keep preserved at the level that is appropriate. And finally, I believe transparency is important. I will work to make sure we have a good communication between the district and the community. I would love to have your support, and I hope that I will have the opportunity to serve our children and community. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Karen Letterello.
Good evening. Thank you. I am Karen Letterello. I'm a wife. I'm a mother. I'm a grandmother. I'm the children's librarian and a community advocate, and I would love to serve on the Mattituck board. I've lived in Mattituck for 36 years. We actually, when we moved to Mattituck, we looked at the school district, and in 1985, this was the Newsday School of the Year. At that time, I attended board meetings and to listen to community involvement and hear community concerns, and none of that has ever changed. We graduated 2 very successful children through the Mattituck School District. Our daughter graduated in 2008 and is currently a high school ENL teacher. Our son graduated in 2010 and he coaches college football. During their time at the school, I was very involved at the elementary as class mother, PTA, Athletic Booster Club, Gridiron Parents, NJRTC, and of course, always attended board meetings. As a community advocate, I held various positions. I was president of the East End Lions Club, a board member of the East End Education Enrichment Coalition. As I said, I'm the children's librarian, and I was involved in all of the different advisory committees for the school. So I work with the elementary and the high school for the library advisory committee. I hold a bachelor's degree in economics and a master's degree in information and library science. I manage a budget that is taxpayer dollars, and I recognize how important that bottom line is. However, education is also very important. It takes a very, very important person to put together not only education for children, but holding a budget line. I am an advocate for, and I chose a lifelong profession that includes children and education. And I believe all children deserve an equitable education in an environment that is both socially and emotionally comfortable, while making sure to hold the line on budget so taxpayers reap the benefits of a stellar education without fear of monetary concerns.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry you've reached your 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from Edward Marlott. Oh, Mr. Marlott, if you could unmute, you're muted right now. Thank you. Mr. Marlott, you're still muted. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now, yes.
All right. Hi, I'm Edward Marlott. Hello, I've been a resident of Mattituck since 2008. I'm childless. I've been employed by the New York City Board of Education, New York State BOCES, and Adelphi University. I have over 45 years experience and expertise in public and higher education, as well as a PhD in education and teacher preparation. I have 2 quotes to go along with this. My first quote of my platform is to educate and not indoctrinate our beloved American students. And I'm more specific than some of the other candidates. And I'm just going to cut to the chase. And these are 8 issues that I see for the school system and coming from the state. The first one is addressing in-person teaching and learning with online teaching and learning. The second one is the role of transgendered students in boys and girls sports. The third one is what is the USA about? The 1619 Project, which is the founding of slavery in the American colonies, or the 1776 Project, founding of liberty in the United States of America. The fourth one is how U.S. history is being taught in curriculum, syllabus, lecture, discussion, and text. And the fifth one is importance of saving and respecting monuments and statues to great American people and places and events. The sixth one is teaching civic citizenship and economics such as socialism versus capitalism, democracy versus Marxism, the Bill of Rights, which includes speech, worship, vote, assembly, and arms. The seventh one is critical race theory coming to a local school district near you. And the last one is how to teach our students the value of law enforcement and how to work with them peaceably. So I would just thank you for listening, and I'd like to be on the board.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
And next we will hear from Denise Taramina.
Hello, my name is Denise Taramina. You know me, and for those of you that don't, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I came to the North Fork a little over 2 years ago when I married my husband. We have 2 children who are currently in 2nd and 3rd grade at Cutchogue East. I have a master's degree in accounting, and I'm currently working part-time as a consultant for one of the largest companies on Long Island. Currently, I'm also the vice president of the PTA, a Girl Scout leader. My kids are involved in activities including lacrosse, Little League, cheer, church choir, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. So I feel like I have a pulse with the parents and the community. I just want to say I continue to be very grateful to the Board of Ed, the administrators, the teachers, and the staff for keeping our school open this year, and cannot thank them enough for all they do for our kids. Since my children have been attending school, I've been very involved. One of the reasons I'm running is because I like to be a voice for the parents and the teachers to keep the lines of communication open between them and the Board of Ed. I'd also like to get more parents and community members involved when it comes to the Board of Education. This year has been trying, not only because of the pandemic, but because we just recently learned that at the elementary level, we'll be getting a whole new administration. If elected, I'd like to work with the board to be more transparent, especially when it comes to the process they use when they hire someone, and to work toward retention and stability of staff. Another reason why I'm running is to focus on fundamental and high quality curriculum so we can lift every student to their highest potential while keeping in mind the children's social and emotional needs. I'd also like to use my background in accounting to make sure we're being fiscally responsible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this point in our program, as I said at the beginning of the event, we had a number of questions emailed to us at the PTSA by community members. I want to thank community members for raising all of those questions. Tonight, we'll be selecting questions at random, and we'll be asking the candidates to answer the questions. We're going to follow the same format that we did in the opening of this event. So my right-hand man over here, my husband, is going to give that 30-second warning when we are nearing the 2-minute mark. So you can have as much time as you need up until the 2 minutes to answer the question. What we're going to try to do is let all 6 candidates answer each question so that we can hear their views on each one of the questions that are raised. So we are going to start this with Karen Letterello. And Karen, the first question that, again, you have up to 2 minutes to answer is, why do you wish to become a member of the Board of Education, and what will you bring to the position?
Thank you. I think that's wonderful. The traits that are required for a Board of Education member, first and foremost, is being passionate about both education and your community. You need to have that. The second thing is advocacy. You need to be an advocate for everything. In our community, we need to be transparent, but we also need to be active. And being an active member is something that I am, and recognizing that when you're walking around, you are representing the school, and I know I can do that. To be diligent. I'm diligent in providing information. That's what I do really for a living. I'm a good listener. I don't form opinions quickly. I like to research all of the information, and I think that that's important. I have the time, and honestly, that is the major reason I would like to do this. I would like to give back to this community. It does take a lot of time. I know Barbara said 5 hours, but that's going to be pretty good. I've sat on a number of boards, and I tell you that you have my commitment. I recognize the fiscal responsibility of our taxpayers. I'm willing at a moment's notice, like I did during the pandemic, to help people. And that's really what I'd like to do. I do have the time to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we will have the same question. I will read it again, and this time we'll hear from Alexandra Cardwell. So the question once again is, why do you wish to be a member of the Board of Education, and what will you bring to the position?
Thank you. I'm running to make sure our kids have a great opportunities and to serve the community. I want to help provide our students with a great education experience. And my 3 priorities would be helping the students have a great education, working productively with the administration, other board members, and the community, and spending funds wisely where they are most needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we will hear from Edward Marlat. The same question. Why do you wish to become a member of the BOE, and what will you bring to the position? Oh, you need to unmute again, please. Thanks.
Okay. I want to become a board member because I have a lot of interest in Mattituck. I've been here since 2008. I'm a retired professor and I have all these years experience. I also have time that I think I have a lot to share, a lot of practical knowledge, a lot of pedagogical expertise that I can share. And I would just like to continue working, even though I'm retired. I have a lot of time on my hands, and I would just like to continue working and have a positive effect on the board and hopefully these school kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from Denise Paramina. I'll repeat the question. Why do you wish to be a member of the Board of Education, and what will you bring to the position?
I wish to be a member, one, because I have children in the district, and I feel like sometimes when I am listening to the Board of Ed meetings, parents need more of a voice on the board. I would like to, once again, tell you, I would like to focus on fundamental and high quality curriculum, which I think is very important. We want to give our kids the best education possible. And just bring more transparency. I've been watching a lot of the board meetings and I've had a lot of questions, and I'd really like to bring more transparency to the community and to the parents and to the staff regarding what's going on within the board.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from Doug Cooper. Again, I'll repeat the question. Why do you wish to continue to be a member on the Board of Education, and what will you bring to the position?
I wish to be elected again to the board because I believe in the future of our district. I believe in the quality of education that we are teaching our kids. I'll bring knowledge of the facilities. I know the buildings, I know the staff. I've been on the board for quite a while. I know the processes, and there's a lot of knowledge that we have to gain. And there's a lot that I can bring to the table for this. I'm immensely concerned with the cost of education, and we need to provide the best education we can, but it also has, it's a balance, as I said, with the taxpayer. So that's the main goals, is affordable education and knowing the facilities. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we'll have Jeffrey Connolly, the same question. Why do you wish to continue to be a member of the Board of Education, and what will you bring to the position?
Thank you, Amy. So I would like to be a member of the board because personally it's very important to give back to the community, and I'm fortunate to be in a position where I can do that. And I also realize the positive impact that education can have on children's lives. I've seen it in myself, my family members and friends. And the things that I bring to the board would be experience on the board. I understand the processes and procedures, coming up with collaborative solutions, working with other board members. My background in finance and accounting, I'm on the audit and finance committee, so I have an understanding of how the school district's budget and finances work. And I also have a vested interest in the district, especially over the long term. So I mentioned I have a child in the high school, but I also have a daughter in the UPK program and another toddler at home. So I'd really like to see long-term success for our district and our community.
Thank you. Our next question, this time we're going to begin with Doug Cooper. So our next question that was submitted by community members is, what do you think are the most important issues facing our schools today? You have up to 2 minutes.
Thank you. With all that's going on in the world today, we have to teach our kids to think critically for themselves and to ask questions and not to just believe everything that they hear maybe on the news or any talk shows. It's educating our kids to face the future. That is a challenge that we are facing, and it seems to be even more important today with everything we see in the world. In addition, a number of our facilities need repair and will need constant work. So we have to continually put money into heating systems. We've done a lot with windows already. We'll be working on roofs coming up. And I hope that we'll be doing something with solar. I think a solar system at the school would be a great way to show the kids that the future is with green energy, and it's something that they can take pride in. So that's something we'll be working on, and I hope that works and it passes. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, for the same question, we'll have Edward Marlott. And the question is, what do you think are the most important issues facing our schools today?
Well, I listed them in my introduction, but I'm very concerned about how the children are being taught what's going on within the country, what the United States is. And I'm just curious as to what's being taught in US history and taught in physics, civics and citizenship and monuments and saving monuments. And I believe that critical race theory has no place in our school system. And I think it's important to teach the value of law enforcement and how to work with them peaceably. That's it.
Thank you. And next, we'll have Denise Taramina, same question. What do you think are the most important issues facing our schools today?
I would agree with some of the things the other candidates have said. The world has been kind of crazy with the pandemic and things have been brought to the forefront. I just think that kids need to learn how to stay and critically think and get different views and not always trust the first thing that they hear, and learn how to think for themselves. And that's what education should be. You know, the school says that they foster collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. And I believe that we need to stick to that and continue making sure that the education goes in this direction.
Thank you. Next, we will have Karen Letterello. And the question is, what do you think are the most important issues facing our schools today?
Okay, thank you. We do. I concur with a lot of what the other candidates said, but I also believe strongly in equity in education. We have students that are coming to us with all different levels of abilities and so forth, and especially coming off this pandemic, as well as our staff. So we need to make sure to work together to have the tools available for staff so that they can move children into the areas that will make them reach their goals easiest. That's important. We have to also work with parents because coming off this pandemic, that's difficult. And I've seen that firsthand. So I would like to see equity in education. The other thing is guiding students in post-secondary plans. Not only do we have a 93% graduation rate, and we have students that maybe are entering the workforce. So I'd like to be that community liaison that helps those students meet some of our business owners so that they are prepared to do that, whether they're going into technical or not. So I think those are where the Board of Education in the school can help our students most.
Thank you. Alexandra Cardwell, the question is, what do you think are the most important issues facing our schools today?
Thank you. There have been a lot of staff changes and we need to return to stability. I think this will make for a better student and teacher experience. And I think our students would greatly benefit from more educational opportunities in technology and the arts. I also think that additional program for college or career preparation would be help our students. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jeffrey Connolly, once again, what do you think are the most important issues facing our schools today?
Thank you, Amy. So specific to Mattituck, I think maintaining and expanding the academic and extracurricular activities as enrollment declines over the next decade is really important. And Mr. Cooper mentioned the aging facilities. You know, the board right now is working on a 5-year plan, and there's a lot of things that need to be replaced and repaired. So that's going to require a lot of capital, and making sure that it's done with the taxpayers' interest in mind, and it's you know, we keep everything on track and make sure that the budget remains stable or possibly slightly increases. So I think those are really the two things for Mattituck that we need to focus on.
Thank you. Now we're going to move on to our next question. This question will start off with Denise Taramina. And the question is, how would you encourage and support diversity in our school?
How would I believe that we should always talk to each other as a community, as parents, with the teachers. I do believe that we are doing a good job with diversity in our schools as currently as they are doing. They are constantly sending surveys, and I think just more communication in general.
Thank you. And the same question we'll hear from Alexandra Cardwell. And Alexandra, the question is, how would you encourage and support diversity in our schools?
I actually agree with what Denise said. I'm sorry. Hello? I agree. I agree with what Denise said. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jeffrey Connolly, the same question. How would you encourage and support diversity in our schools?
Yes, so I think, you know, a great way to support diversity is really to spend time with people of different backgrounds and different skill sets and really get to know them on a one-on-one level. So I think through sports, clubs, and activities where all the students can get together and, you know, build friendships is, you know, a great way to support diversity.
Thank you. Doug Cooper, the same question. How would you encourage and support diversity in our schools?
We have to start with, and I believe our school is doing this to a large extent, but we have to teach tolerance. We have to teach understanding that we are all different in some ways. And to have that tolerance between different groups is extremely important. And to educate the history of different groups. And that's, once you understand the history of people that are different from you, you should have more tolerance for them and acceptance. And that's what I think needs to be done. And I believe that is what we are working towards. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen Letterello, same question. How would you support and encourage diversity in our schools?
Thank you, Amy. I agree with what Jeff and both Doug said, especially sports teams. You're absolutely right. And I think that's what the school needs to do is we are all one and we have to work toward that. And by having community discussions revolving around diversity is wonderful. I see the parent university, and I think those are opportunities where we get to connect with everyone in our community and work together, because that's what it's all about. So thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, Edward Malott, same question. How would you encourage and support diversity in our schools? We just need you to unmute. Thank you. Mr. Malat, we can't hear you. If you could just unmute.
How's that?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I wouldn't go beyond diversity. I think the goal of diversity should be unity, that we should teach the kids, even though they're from different backgrounds, that we have an American culture and we have an American history, and that holding on to all the things from the previous cultures that they come from slows them down from assimilating into the United States. So that's my point. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. For the next question, we're going to start with Alexandra Cardwell. All right, this is a long one, so I'm going to read it as written, that was sent in to us. The public often calls Board of Education members privately to ask questions, share concerns, make suggestions. Confidentiality is a key role in the responsibilities of a Board of Education member. How would you handle these kinds of interactions with the public?
Oh,
Do you want to repeat one more time?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
The public often calls Board of Education members privately to ask questions, share concerns, make suggestions. Confidentiality is a key role in the responsibilities of a Board of Education member. How would you handle these kinds of interactions with the public?
I will maintain the confidentiality and yeah. I would just keep the confidentiality and make sure and respect the privacy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff Connolly, would you have the same question? The public often calls Board of Education members privately to ask questions, share concerns. Confidentiality is a key role in the responsibilities of a Board of Ed member. How would you handle these kinds of interactions with the public?
Thank you, Amy. So I would listen to the issue and direct the parent or community member to the admin staff at the building where the issue occurred, and ask them to follow up with me to see if they got a resolution to that issue. I'd also remind them that as a Board of Ed trustee, I have no power. I'm just a regular community person, and it's really the board as a whole that is able to set policy. So I'd also encourage them to come to the Board of Ed meetings because we really appreciate the feedback that we get from the community. So those are really the key points that I'd focus on.
Thank you. Karen Letterello, the same question. Do you want me to repeat it?
Yes. No, I think
You got it? Okay.
That's a great question. I think trust and knowing who the person is and holding the reputation. It's important that we maintain our professionalism. We have to know how to separate our personal and our professional relationships to maintain confidentiality. And maintaining trust is very important, and our reputations are. So I think that's how I would answer that. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug Cooper, the same question.
Sure. I think we all on the board are willing to listen to people that have concerns and to give feedback from what we know. But as I think Jeff mentioned, the real thing to do is to go, when you have a concern, go to the administration. And if that doesn't work, then you can always ask a board member, and a board member can look into it. But when it comes to trust, the confidentiality is extremely important. Once you lose people's trust, you have nothing. And it's extremely hard to get that back ever. So that's something we all have to keep in mind. And as Jeff said,
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think Mr. Cooper's
frozen.
video is frozen. Okay, we're going to move on. Denise Taramina, if you want to answer the same question, would you like me to repeat it?
I believe I understood it.
Okay.
Confidentiality. I am a big believer in confidentiality. I'm also running to be a voice. So I would welcome those questions coming to me and trying to figure out how I could share with the board while maintaining the confidentiality to bring these issues to light. I do believe people should be more involved with what is going on in the Board of Education. They're the ones that make the decisions for our children. And I believe more people should be coming up with some questions. I'd be more than willing to answer them or to try and help them or point them in the right direction while maintaining confidentiality.
Thank you. And Mr. Cooper, you got cut off before. I don't know if there was anything else you wanted to say to wrap it up or if you'd finished. You're muted. We can't hear you.
There you go.
Okay.
Where did I leave off?
I thought that you were wrapping it up, but I wasn't sure if there's anything else that you wanted to add.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Malat, the same question.
Well, I might say don't call after 9 p.m. I mean, I would put restrictions into when to call me. I think that's important. I think having them call me, definitely listen to what they have to say, try to direct them to the right department. But I also would encourage email. I think email communication is good because you have a record of what they're saying, and then maybe you could forward that email to someone who might be able to help them. That's it. Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you. This next question, we're going to start with Jeff Connolly. And the question is, where do you stand on COVID policies and our schools transition back to normal? Do you side on strict safety or doing everything possible to normalize and improve the student experience and socialization?
Sure. So in my opinion, I think there is a lot of evidence that COVID is a very serious illness, but children are not as impacted as adults. So I would look to try to return to normal as soon as possible, with the understanding that there are certain Department of Health guidelines that we have to abide by. So I would push to get back to normal as soon as possible, but in light of the guidelines that are put down from the state. So that's.
Thank
Turn it back to
you.
Andy. Thank you.
Thank you. Alexandra Cardwell, this is the same question regarding your stand on COVID policies and the school's transition back to normal.
Thank you. Safety is very critical. The district should continue to follow government guidance. I'm optimistic about a return to near normal schooling this fall. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen Letterello, that same question regarding COVID policies, your stand on COVID policies?
Yes, thank you. First, I'd like to commend the Mattituck-Cutchogue School Board for doing all they did in getting students back sooner than other districts. However, COVID-19 is a very serious issue. And what we have to remember is safety always has to be the main concern. Unfortunately, socialization is something that we have to work for because children have not had that. So that's important. But we need to recognize the stress that students, families, and staff are experiencing over these times. We don't know what students have at home and when they come here. So that's important. So I would just stress that we support all of our families and support our staff and work toward the best way to help everyone for the best of the school district. Thank you.
Thank you. Edward Marlat, the same question regarding COVID policies. Don't forget to unmute.
Repeat the question, please.
Sure. The question is, where do you stand on COVID policies and our schools transition back to normal? Do you stand on the side of strict safety or doing everything possible to normalize and improve the student experience and socialization?
Well, like I discussed in one of my issues, it's all about in-person teaching and learning versus online teaching and learning. And I think that that's a big issue. I don't think it was successful, all this online learning, and it also keeps the parents home from work. So I think coming to school is good. Now, this COVID has changed the definition of quarantine. When I was a child in school, I got scarlet fever. The whole class wasn't quarantined. I was quarantined. And I think that that's important. I don't understand why, if one kid tests positive for COVID, do you shut the whole school down, or you shut the the class down. You take that person and you quarantine that person. And so I think that in the beginning, it was fine to close them down, but I think we should reopen them all. I talk to high school kids all the time. They do not like in-person online teaching. And especially if the child doesn't have an adult with them at home, I don't know how you could possibly teach a first grade class online. So I personally believe that we should be careful about COVID, but we should carefully think of how we can best educate these students during an epidemic. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Denise Taramina, the same question regarding COVID policies.
I would agree with Jeff's answer. I believe the kids, it's a very different from a year ago. We have a lot of vaccines coming out, and I believe that the school follows Suffolk Health Commissioner guidelines. And if the guidelines are, obviously keep following them, and if they say that it's safer to open up more, I would 100% agree with that. The kids have been through a lot, and I think we need to start thinking of their mental health as well as their safety. Obviously, safety first, but mental health is having a little bit of a toll on all these kids with all these restrictions. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Cooper, the same question regarding your stand on COVID policies.
I'm a firm believer in science, and I strongly support the science aspect of it. The fact of the matter is, Albany determines what we can and can't do. Within that, I think the vast majority of the people want their schools open as soon as possible. And Mattituck did a very, very good job. We worked within the guidelines of Albany, and that is what we have to do. We have to work with what the science and doctors tell us we can do and what Albany says, and then make the best decisions of what we can and open up as quickly as we can. But still, safety is extremely important. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question for the group is going to start with Mr. Marlott. And the question is, being a Board of Education member means you often have to compromise on decisions that affect the whole district or student body. How would you handle a situation where the Board of Ed does not agree with your opinion, but you have to agree by consensus?
Well, that's where you use common ground. I mean, you discuss both sides of the issue, and then you come to common ground. I think it's very important that we work as a team, but it isn't always going to be unanimous, and we're going to disagree on issues. So maybe we could come to a common ground or a compromise on that issue, which would be more satisfactory to more people. That's it. That's it.
Thank you. Denise Taramina, the same question. Being a Board of Education member means you have to compromise on decisions that affect the whole district. How would you handle a situation where the Board of Ed doesn't agree with your opinion, but you have to agree by consensus?
I would agree that I tend to have strong opinions, but I also feel I'm very open-minded, and I do believe that you could voice your opinions and also listen to others and come to a consensus. And if that's not possible, you know, if I were to be a board member and were to be elected, I would have to go with the majority, knowing that I have said my piece, and hopefully in the future it would be taken into account.
Thank you. Doug Cooper, the same question. How would you handle a situation where the Board of Ed does not agree with your opinion, but you have to agree by consensus?
It's happened many times. And the best approach is to be prepared for an argument, to have your facts available and your ideas, and try and persuade the board. But if you can't, you can't. And at the end of the day, you go home and have a couple of drinks and say, that's that. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. And you just have to be willing to accept that and know that your opinion is not always right. it's the majority's opinion that has to rule. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Connolly, the same question. How would you handle a situation where the Board of Ed does not agree with your opinion, but you have to agree by consensus?
Yes, Mr. Cooper really nailed it. It's important to collaborate with the other BOE members, but there are 7 of us, so there's bound to be issues that don't go your way. And you have to be professional and not take it personally and move on and continue to work with the other board members to do what's in the best interest of the students.
Thank you. Alexandra Cardwell, the same question. How would you handle a situation where the Board of Ed does not agree with your opinion, but you have to agree by consensus?
I agree with a lot of what others said. I believe compromise is critical. We have to decide as a team, and I will work to reach the best agreement for all. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mrs. Letterello, the same question. How would you handle a situation where the Board of Ed doesn't agree with your opinion, but you have to agree by consensus?
This is a great question because I think the Board of Ed really needs to have effective discussions like this and varying opinions. And you're absolutely right. As a team, we have to work as a team. And so, of course, if your opinion is not the one that's the majority, that's okay because you're listening to what everyone else said. But I encourage this type of discussion. So I think that would be good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next question for the group is going to begin with Alexandra Cardwell. So Alexandra. Oh, here it is. If in a situation that it would be necessary to exceed the 2% tax cap in order to provide critical programs for students, would you be in favor of piercing the cap? And this question's for Alexandra.
I think we should keep the budget low, spending where we need to spend, which is on our kids' education. We should cut where we need to and spend wisely. Thank you.
Thank you. Denise Taramina, the same question. If in a situation that it would be necessary to exceed the 2% tax cap in order to provide critical programs for students, would you be in favor of piercing the cap?
I do think we need to be fiscally responsible as a community, and I would have to look back at the financials and see if there's other ways we could find the funds before I would even consider doing something that extreme.
Thank you. Jeff Connolly, the same question. Would you be in favor of piercing the tax cap if it was necessary to provide critical programs to students?
I would prefer not to, but obviously each situation is going to be very nuanced. And if the argument was made that it was really critical, I may take another look at it, but ultimately it would go to the voters in the community, and they would have the final say.
Thank you. Karen Letterello, the same question. Would you be in favor of piercing the 2% tax cap if it was necessary to provide critical programs for students?
I would have to concur with Jeff on my answer. We need to be responsible. Our taxpayers are who fund our school. We're mostly funded through taxpayer dollars. However, critical, I would hope that in the budget, there's always a little bit of wiggle room. So we'd have to go back through and look again. I know Mattituck has always stepped up for its students and would do that. So I would hope that that wouldn't be necessary, that we would be able to reevaluate some of the programs and take a look at things.
Thank you. Edward Marlott, the same question. Would you be?
I don't know. I don't know really that much about this aspect of being on the Board of Ed. So that's something I would have to research. So I cannot really say either way. So that's
okay. Thank you. And Mr. Cooper, the same question.
The chances of something like that happening are rare. It would have to be an extreme event. If we had a building burned down, for instance, and we had to rebuild a school, yes, you'd have to go to the voter and ask to exceed the cap. But in general, one would hope that we can stay within it and move funds from one project to another. We can delay some projects if there's something that was critical. But it's rare that something would be so extreme that we would have to exceed the cap. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to our next question. And this question will begin with Edward Marlott. And the question is, what qualities or attributes would you look for in our next superintendent?
Well, one of them would be that they had a doctorate in education or a PhD in education. I think that's very, very important. I think their experiences in teaching in the classroom is very important, and that they just haven't spent most of their time in administration. I think hiring a superintendent who's actually had classroom experience is very important. And then I would take a look at the district she had worked for. And I would also emphasize describe what our district is looking for. My cat is here. I'm sorry, my cat. I got to push my cat. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Jeff Connolly, the same question. What qualities would you look for in the next superintendent?
Thank you. So the qualities I would look for in the next superintendent are a connection to the community or a good fit with the values of our community, a strong background in curriculum and academics, and also leadership, because they really set the tone for the rest of the teachers. So those are the top three that I'd focus on.
Thank you. Mr. Cooper, the same question. What qualities would you look for in the next superintendent?
I think Mr. Connolly hit the nail on the head to a large extent. I would add maturity and understanding, the experience, the tolerance of working with the public. You often, as a leader, never have people happy with you, but that's part of the game. That's part of the job. So we need a leader that is a people-friendly person and that can work with the public and knows the public, and is an educational leader. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen Letterello, the same question. What qualities would you look for in the next superintendent?
I think the next superintendent has to be the face of our community. Oftentimes they're very busy in the school, but the community is who we are. So I think it's important that this person be approachable and understand that we need to immerse this new person into our community so that our community knows who they are, works with them, and feels that they are approachable. So I think that is the most important thing we need to do.
Thank you. Denise Taramina, the same question. What qualities would you look for in the next superintendent?
I would agree with what Karen said, along with somebody who could provide some stability to the district. There has been a lot of turnover. I mean, our current superintendent has been here for 3 years. I would like to see some longevity and someone who wants to work with the community, work with the teachers, and especially with the students, and put students' needs first.
Thank you. And lastly, Alexandra Cardwell, the same question. What qualities would you look for in the next superintendent?
So I will look for leadership, doctorate, love of students, strong track record of success, and most important, understanding of our district and community. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question for the group is going to start with Jeff Connolly. And the question is, Virginia recently stated that they would be doing away with AP courses, as well as any courses where some students may excel more than others, as to level the playing field. What are your thoughts on this?
I think that there are a lot of different academic ambitions throughout a student population, and that it's important to have those AP courses for students that want to be challenged and aspire to go on to college and pursue more rigorous coursework. But I also think it's really important to understand that college is not for everyone, and we do need to offer programs that will allow our students to move into the workforce, whether it's in jobs in trade or agriculture or hospitality. One of the biggest complaints I hear from older people in our community is my children are moving to the Carolinas or moving to Florida. They can't get a job here. So, being able to provide rigorous academic coursework for students that want that, but also being able to provide career training that can lead into jobs where you can earn enough money to live on Long Island. I think those are the two things that you really need to balance.
Thank you. And the same question, we will go to Karen Letterello. Virginia recently stated they would be doing away with AP courses, as well as any courses where some students may excel other than others to level the playing field. What are your thoughts on this?
Again, it goes back to what I call equitable education. And that's how we can ensure that all students are being given the tools that they as individuals need to become successful and to become great humans. We shouldn't stop education for some. It needs to be equitable for each individual student.
Thank you. Edward Marlott, the same question.
Yeah, I take issue with the equity in education. I'm in favor of equality in education. Equity moves us farther away from a meritocracy, of which I thought that's what our country was. So when you're talking about equity in education, you're not teaching advanced placement anymore. You're not looking to the person who excels over the other. You're getting rid of gifted classes. So I'm very much against what that governor did down in Virginia. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Alexandra Cardwell, the same question. Virginia, do you want me to repeat it?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
I do not agree with eliminating AP courses. I think AP courses provide an important education options. I also agree that more career-focused classes are important. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug Cooper, the same question. Oh, we have to turn on your mic, please. You're muted. Mr. Cooper. Mr. Cooper, you're muted.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's okay.
Would you repeat the question?
Yes, of course.
please?
The question is, Virginia recently stated that they would be doing away with AP courses, as well as any courses where some students may excel more than others as to level the playing field. What are your thoughts on this?
Absurdity. They're in a race. If that's true, if they really did that, it's absurd. They're in a race to the bottom. So we have to try and educate our brightest and best students and give them challenges, as well as those who want more hands-on education, more of the trades. People are not we are not all the same. We are not from a cookie cutter. And we have to understand that, and education is to provide for the education of all our students to the best of our ability. Thank you.
Thank you. And Denise Taramina, the same question. Would you like me to repeat it?
I'm good, thank you. Maybe, yeah, repeat it, Amy, I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. Virginia recently stated they would be doing away with AP courses, as well as any courses where some students may excel more than others as to level the playing field. What are your thoughts on this?
I disagree with that. I think we should raise every child to their full potential. Some people need that extra push and others, but I do agree that there should be different classes for different, you know, some people don't want the AP courses, but I don't believe you should be taking them away for the kids that do.
Thank you. For the next question, we will begin with Karen Letterello. And Karen, the question is, how would you support administration, teacher, and support staff morale?
That's a great question. Morale makes a difference in how they're coming in for the day and educating. So what I would do is to work as a community involvement. You know, we need to continue to set the bar high for our educators. We need to provide them with the tools and the access to paths to help them not only improve themselves, but help them improve our students. We need to have tier 1 teachers coming to our district. We're Mattituck. We provide so much for people, and we need to let people know that the morale is important. So that would be a #1 thing for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from Doug Cooper. The same question. How would you support administration, teacher, and support staff morale?
How would I support, what was that?
Like, how would you boost the morale of our district staff?
You listen to them, and you try to take in some of their ideas, because the staff have the ideas, and we have to empower them to excel and to feel unthreatened with when they want to experiment and try different ideas. So to boost morale, you want to listen to the staff and give them some credence and empower them.
Thank you. Denise Taramina, the same question. How would you support administration, teacher, and support staff morale?
I would also listen to them. And, you know, with the year that we've had, I can't say enough how much these teachers and the administration have proven and gone above and beyond. And I just believe just giving them some praise, an email occasionally, letting them know that they are appreciated.
Thank you. Edward Marlott, the same question. How would you support administration, teacher, and staff morale?
This is where I think a teacher mentor program is very important, that the teacher mentor could support a new teacher, which would help to increase their morale. And then also to have them, you know, sit down as a group and listen to what they're saying. I think that's very important. And that's it.
Thank you. Alexandra Cardwell, the same question. How would you support our district staff morale?
Like others said, listening is the key. I would support morale by talking a lot with the administration and teachers, listening to them. I agree we must support our people so they can best teach our students. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jeff Connolly, the same question. How would you support district staff morale?
So by having conversations with, you know, the staff throughout the district and being available and receptive for what they tell us and the feedback that they give to us, you know, the things that they need to be successful, and then support them through professional development opportunities, as well as, you know, the budget process, as long as it's within reason. The budget's a big part where, you know, everything gets rolled up to the Board of Ed and the teachers ask for things, and we have an ongoing conversation about, you know, what do we need to roll out this new piece of curriculum and what's it going to impact the students, and, you know, how do we get it done? Where do we get the money? So those are really the areas that I would focus on.
Thank you. This next round of questions will begin with Denise Taramina. Denise, the question is, what is your stance on standardized testing, specifically the state test introduced with Common Core?
I believe in test taking. I'm not exactly sure how I should answer that question. I don't know really enough about it, other than my kids can either opt in or out of it, and that we, as Common Core, that all of New York State, I think it's a good way to see where we are as a district. And I do think it's a good thing for kids to take, to learn how to take a test.
Thank you. Alexandra Cardwell, the same question. What is your stance on standardized testing, specifically the state test introduced with the Common Core?
I believe standardized tests are very important. I would need to learn more about that, so I'm sorry I cannot give too much input to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Connolly, the same question. What is your stance on standardized testing, specifically the state test with Common Core?
So I think testing is important. It helps to identify areas of need or areas where we can improve, but it is not the holy grail of education. And sometimes we can get too focused on testing data and lose sight of the big picture.
Thank you. Doug Cooper, the same question. What is your stance on standardized testing?
A necessary evil, perhaps, is the best way of looking at it. We have to know where we stand with the rest of our peers. And are we doing a good job teaching or not? Where do we need improvements? So it's critical that we have it, especially when you want to compare yourself to other parts of the country and other parts of the state. Just one other thing, I wanted to get back to staff morale, if I could. Asking staff their opinion on things is extremely important if you want to build morale, and listening to them and knowing that, letting the staff know that they have a safe work environment where they won't be criticized. This is all part of building a good team and morale. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen Letterello, the same question. What is your stance on standardized testing?
Well, I agree. I think testing allows us to have benchmarks to see where students are, and we need to be able to assess students to help them. However, testing on one particular day is not really the best way to evaluate what our students have. There's a lot of stress that's involved. So although I agree with looking at testing from a benchmark status, I don't think that one test should determine everything.
Thank you. And Edward Marlott, the same question. What is your stance on standardized testing?
I find it very interesting. When I was teaching in public school, every parent wanted their kid tested. They wanted to know their grade level. They wanted to know how they did with other students in the class. Today, it's much different. They want them to opt out from testing. So I am in favor of it, but like some of the other people said, it's not the overall thing. I know I used to teach a lot of college kids, and they said that the SAT should not be used just as it is, as an admission to get in, that it's also their GPA. It's the whole picture, like what Jeffrey said. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, this is going to be our 10th and final question for this evening. And when we're done with this round of questions, we're going to give each Board of Ed candidate 1 minute to make a closing statement. So again, this will be our last question for this evening. And we're going to start with Mr. Doug Cooper. And Mr. Cooper, your question is, before running for the board, how were you involved with the district?
Only as a parent and taxpayer. And an old friend of mine was on the board, and I would often complain to him about taxes. And he came to me one day and said, "We need some people to run for the board."
No, stop it.
Would you like to try it?
Want to go out?
So I said yes.
Okay, thank you. Karen Letterello, the same question. Before running for the board, how have you been involved with the district?
Okay, so as I mentioned, back when my husband and I were looking for a house, we moved to Mattituck and started the Board of Ed there. And then when my children started school, I became involved in the school district. I actually worked for the school from 1997 to 2005, filling in as both the secretary, a lunch monitor, and a teacher assistant, until I moved over to my current position as a children's librarian. Still on with the Library Advisory Committee. I love the partnerships of the library and the school, and I think that that's something that needs to continue. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marlott, the same question. Before running for the board, how have you been involved in the district? If you could just unmute, please. Thank you.
Well, I was a substitute teacher in the Mattituck schools, and I did that right after I retired after 25 years of teaching in college and university level. So that wasn't very successful for me. I didn't want to go there the discipline I wanted to teach. So I was involved through that, but then also as the vice president and then president of the Historical Society, we used to get the kids involved in different things through teaching history. So that's those two things, the Historical Society and subbing.
Thank you very much. Denise Taormina, the same question. Before running for the board, how have you been involved with the district?
Just basically with my kids in school, I've been class mom. I'm on the board of the PTA currently. I volunteer as much as I can whenever anyone asks me to. I've run some of my Girl Scout meetings when it was available through the school. So I feel like I've seen a lot of faces and know a lot of people. And I just really want to be a voice for parents and staff and try and connect the board to those voices and you know, make everyone more involved.
Thank you very much. Jeff Connolly, the same question. Before running for the board, how have you been involved in the district?
Yes, so I've been involved in the district as a parent and a taxpayer. And 3 years ago, Mr. Cooper encouraged me to run, and I decided to give it a shot. And it's been a great experience so far. I really enjoy giving back to the community and seeing the growth of the district over time.
Thank you. And Alexandra Cardwell, the same question. Before running for the board, how have you been involved in the district?
I have a child in the district and I have spoken with other parents. I'm also a PTA member. Being on board member will be a bit of a learning experience for me, but I'm excited to work for our students and community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, at this point, we have gone through 10 questions that we have received from community members, and we are going to have a final statement from each candidate. So we are going to put a 1 minute timer on the board, so to speak. And if you could just basically sum up your, why you're running, any final words that you'd like to say. We are going to start with Jeff Connolly on this.
Great, thank you. So I'm really in favor of continuing to build on the strong academic background and curriculum to offer students opportunities that are focused on continuing on in college and also students that are interested in moving on to careers. My background is in finance. I believe I'm very fiscally responsible and would like to keep our taxes low. I think that's really important. And as a parent of young children in the district, I have a vested interest in the success over the next 15, 20 years. So thank you very much. And I appreciate the opportunity to be part of this event.
Thank you very much. Denise Taormina, if you'd like to give a closing statement.
Thank you. I just believe I'm a good listener. I'm not afraid to use my voice. And I want to build on our curriculum. I also want to be a voice for the parents and for the staff. And I believe we could give our kids the best education by accomplishing goals together. I promise to keep our school and community in mind while making decisions if elected. And I just really love your support. So please consider voting for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen Letterello, a closing statement, please.
Thank you. I want to thank the PTSA and other candidates and board members for tonight. And a shout out to our community members for all the support that they provide. I do believe that I will make a difference with this school. I know that I want to reiterate my passion about education and children in my current role. I have the time. I will be fiscally responsible and encourage community members to voice their opinions, but I will listen and research before making any decisions. I'm a team player. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Edward Marlott, a final statement.
Yeah, I'm going to make a statement, and it's going to be portending because of what I see coming down in the federal Department of Education. So I'm not in favor of wokeism. I do not want to cancel American culture. I'm not for critical race theory being taught to our schools, in our schools. I am in favor of teaching the greatness of our country, including our weaknesses. How can we expect to educate healthy and well-adjusted students in Mattituck-Cutchogue Laurel if we are teaching them that they live in a horrible country and asking them to apologize for being Caucasian. With this philosophy, they will not grow up into healthy, well-adjusted Americans, which I believe the school district extols. While on the board, I will work toward maintaining these values. And then I have a final quote: red, black, white, brown, yellow, other. Teaching all these students American culture and history, combined with the importance of being American in the USA, as well as around the world, equally and universally. And I want to say thank you.
Thank you very much. Alexandra Cardwell, a final statement.
I would like to say thank you very much again for the opportunity to share my thoughts with the community. If you choose me as a board member, I will bring my experience and knowledge as a small business owner, Rotary Club past president, and parents to the position, focusing on what's best for both our students and the community. My overall goals will be to help provide a great educational experience for our students while also managing the district's resources wisely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And last but certainly not least is Mr. Cooper. A final statement, please.
No, thank you. A free public education is the great equalizer that has made our country good. It is extremely important when you look around the world where it does not exist. What is extremely important, likewise, is to teach tolerance and to teach acceptance and anti-bullying. This is all part of the ideals, what I would look at as the American culture. And American culture is not a culture of white Americans. It's a culture of all cultures, and it changes. It constantly changes from what it was 100 years ago to what it is today, and it's going to change in the future. And we have to understand that and accept that things change. And education helps that process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to thank all of our Board of Education candidates for their time today. And most importantly, before we leave this evening, Tuesday, May 18th, from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. at Mattituck High School, please, everyone come out and vote. Everyone, please make sure you come out to vote. Again, May 18th, please spread the word to your friends and neighbors and show great support for our school budget and for our school board members. Thank you again for all of our candidates for running and willing to give such a huge contribution of your time and efforts to our community. Thank you, everyone, and have a pleasant evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.
Tuesday, May 18th. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Sean, who do you?